Good morning, viewers, and welcome to another live stream. Thought today we'd do something a little different. That was after, of course, I was online yesterday evening and I saw something and it made me think of this topic. And I thought we'd just get into this for a minute, but, um, is what it is, right? Okay, so anyway, emergency radios. We talk about emergency radios because you need a radio in case there is an emergency, you need to be prepared. And, well, I tell you, if it's just radio, you need to be prepared. I am over prepared. But while a radio is a great idea, there are people out there that prey on people's fears in order to sell a product. And last night I ran across one of those things. It was an advertisement on a website, on a social media platform. And on the on this site, or on the original advertisement, it shows a guy holding up the classic Baofeng UV5R. He's got it in his hand, holding it up. I don't have mine here to hold it up, but he's holding up the radio, and it talks about, and on the ad it says, talks 2,120 miles. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. First of all, let me dispel that real quick. On a handheld radio, and I'll just grab this one here for an example. Handheld radio, you need line of sight, clear line of sight, maybe 5 miles at most. My wife and I, we talk on our radios a lot. Now, if she's part of the way across town, we can hit simplex. It's not too far for us to hit simplex when she's downtown and stuff. However, if she's at her job, we have to use a repeater tower because there are buildings and stuff in the way. Now, that's a lot less than 5 miles, I'll tell you that. But there's a lot of obstructions, and radio waves, they don't go through or around obstructions. They hit and they impact and they get stopped. That's just the way it works. So when you see an ad that says something like that, take notice that they're blowing smoke right away. But I'm going to load it up here and put it on the screen so that y'all can see what I saw, and then I'm going to walk you through this whole ad and give you my thoughts on it as we go. So buckle up, boys and girls. This might be a bumpy ride. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're enjoying this content and if you enjoy two-way radio content altogether. All right, let's get into this ad. Okay, so here we go. Here's our ad that this isn't actually the ad, this is from the website. So the ad, I don't actually didn't save a copy of the ad. When I went back to find it, it was gone, but replaced with others from the similar ones from the same company. Now, of course, like I said, on the original ad, it shows on the one that you click on the social media platform, it had the guy holding the UV5R. Now, the radio on the screen, of course, is not the UV5R. I did some looking, although, and did find the closest radio to that, and we're going to talk about that in a bit too. Okay, but it says here, by the way, it doesn't tell you the exact model of radio that they're selling. That's something of interest here, okay? So it says here, times are unpredictable. Protect yourself with off-grid communication. Well, that's a good idea. You should have a radio. I think everybody should have a radio. That's fine. I have no problem with that. And yes, times are completely unpredictable. But that's fear-mongering right there. That's a tactic that people like to use for fear-mongering. Okay. So listen in and around the world during an emergency. Communicate locally and globally with friends, our family, friends, and more. Listen in around the world during an emergency. These are not shortwave radios. You're not going to be hearing around the world things, This is a UHF VHF radio, so you're not going to be doing any global communication there. Let's just dispel that one before we even get into it. But you're not going to be doing the global communication. Not happening. Okay. Communicate locally and globally with your friends and family. Once again, not going to be communicating globally. Not going to happen, okay? Even with a repeater, you're limited. Even with linked repeaters on ham networks, you're still limited. Um, but we'll continue, okay? 100% protected from cyber attacks, power grid failures, EMPs, and more. Cyber attacks, yes. Yeah, you can't cyber attack a two-way radio. Power grid failures, well, if you have a backup battery supply or a solar generator, yeah, it'll still work with a power grid failure. That's true. EMPs, on the other hand, oh, me, and more. They don't tell you what the more is, and more. Okay, we'll get to the EMP part in a bit when we talk more about this further on down the list here. But 7-day plus battery life plus off the grid charger, local, regional, worldwide communications. All right, let's cover two things here. The EMP protection off the grid charger. That's an add-on package. Now you see the price there. It's $150 on sale for $69.99. Now, the EMP protection and the off-grid battery charger, they are sold separately as a separate package, and we can look at the price on that later. But they are sold separately, and that, of course, is their solar protection, of course, their EMP protection, is a Faraday bag, which, by the way, you can get those real cheap on Amazon if you really need one. Okay. And solar chargers, they're not that expensive on Amazon. Of course, this company's going to charge you a lot. Let's just be honest. They're charging you a lot already for the radio, and we'll talk about why that is here in a few minutes. Okay. Tune into emergency communications from governments, military, weather, FEMA, and more. Well, here's your thing there. No, you're not going to be doing most of that. Weather, yes, you will get weather. Most radios do have weather band on them, or you can program in the weather frequencies. That's true. You can do that. However, most government, military, FEMA, and local and other things that are going to be encrypted, digital or encrypted. And I know that because my local EMS is open. I can still listen to it. But recently they've gone all digital on the fire departments. So I'm not hearing anything on the fire department channel anymore, except for static, digital sounds, but nothing I can hear in. Okay. Easy to use, not your average radio you would find in a store. Comes programmed with emergency frequencies for FEMA, National Guard, and more. And they do program these for a fee. Okay. And free shipping anywhere in the USA. Now, of course, this is as seen on TV stuff right here. As seen on, of course, New York Post, Essence, whatever, CBS, Fox, NBC, Joyner, Steve Harvey, Charlotte Today, whatever. Okay. It's an as seen on TV item. Now, as you know, as seen on TV items are usually bogus anyway. But we have to look at it. Let's go down a little further here. Oh, time to be prepared. By the way, this timer, it was the same as last night, okay? And I've changed this into a whole new browser, so yeah. The timer doesn't count. Now is the time to be prepared. Really? Wasn't yesterday the time to be prepared? The day before that? Okay, currently 60% off one day only. Of course, it said 23 hours, about 12 hours ago, or 15 hours ago. So, no. Okay, currently 60% off, one day only. So, yeah, not one day only. All right, with the ongoing crisis in Europe, the threat of cyber attacks on the U.S., and the uncertainty of World War III, you simply cannot rely on cell phones and the internet for communications in the future. Well, that's true. That's what that's something I tell people, My wife and I, we talk to each other on the phone, but if she can't reach me on the phone, she knows she needs to get her radio out because I'm more likely to have my radio on me than my phone. That's just a habit. It's a bad habit, probably, but I just don't care for the phone. So, yeah, you do need to be prepared. But is this the route to go? That's something to think about. These radios are grid-free with both local communication and worldwide transmissions as well. There's an asterisk there. We'll even program the frequencies for you for a fee. Keep in touch with your friends, family, emergency services, wherever they are located. Once again, no, you're not going to be, because if you're across the country from each other, it's not going to work that way. And that asterisk is there for a reason. Okay, and we're going to get down to the rest of it. Talk for days without losing battery charge, plus included solar charger option. Talk for days without losing a charge. No, you're not going to talk for days without losing a charge. Let's see here. Okay, this radio here, and I know y'all can't see this, but I don't think you can see this on the screen, but I'll hold it up. So this radio here, I had on, where's the screen? Yeah, y'all can't see it because of the glare, but I had this radio on yesterday on scan, and I'm already at like 80% battery on that radio. And it's got the largest battery of, the biggest battery of any radio I've got. That's a 3,500 milliamp hour battery. Now, by the way, UV5R or small radio like these, they usually have about an 1,800 milliamp hour battery. So you're not going to be talking for days without losing a battery charge. Anybody that believes that, we've got farmland in Antarctica that's for sale right now. Okay, great. Our professional grade radios are selling fast, sold out in most places, and available for a limited time with free shipping. Once again, gets back into the free shipping thing. Okay. Military grade technology, legal to own with no FCC license required. That's true. You do not need an FCC license to own these radios. Now, the radio in the picture is probably not the one you're going to get. If it is the one that you're going to get, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll come back to why that I said that. Okay. Our radios are from My Emergency. Radios from My Emergency Radio are not your everyday Cobra or Midland walkie-talkie. Our radios are ham radios, which are professional-grade communications used by law enforcement, military, and more. No, those are pretty cheap radios right there in the picture. And by the way, I know they're selling for $60 or $70 as military grade, but no. But they are pretty. They're pretty cheap radios. They're not really military grade. Okay, they're not. But they are ham radios. That's true. And you can listen to them with no FCC license required. Then it goes on to say, the FCC rules state that even those without an FCC license may legally transmit on a ham radio in the event of an emergency, threat of life, meaning a national emergency. Well, if the grid collapses, I'll agree that nobody's going to be checking licenses if the whole grid collapses or there's a big national emergency. That's true. But throughout this ad, before you said that, this ad has given people the impression that they can communicate with their neighbor down the street with no problem. Communicate with friends and family, wherever. It said that in the ad earlier. Do we need to go back? Okay. So, but you can't. What does that mean? Every citizen in America should own one of these radios, whether they have a license or not, since you can legally use it if and when you need it most. You see, but they put that in bold letters. You can legally use it. And they see how they capitalize legally there. So people are going to focus on that. Oh, I can legally use it. I don't need a license. Okay, well, you do need a license. And while I don't agree with licensing things all the time, it's the rules. In fact, you have to have a license, okay? So deal with that. Get a license of the service, whichever service you're going to use, and be done with it. Okay. But do people need a radio for emergencies? Yes. And in an emergency, yes, you could use a radio to communicate with someone. And if you have the right frequencies programmed in it, it could save your life. Those are all true statements. However, you need to know how to use the radio. You need to learn a little about the radio. So maybe do a little research instead of just buying something and sticking it in a box and saying, okay, I've got it. And when things happen, you still don't know how to use it. So if you're going to buy it, learn to use it. That's a big thing there. Okay. 100% American-owned business, satisfaction guaranteed. Please remember that for later when we get to talking about this. If If you aren't satisfied with your purchase, just contact us and someone from our Michigan, USA office will make things right. Of course, then you've got the standard testimonials down here. We're not going to read those, but you've got the standard testimonials as seen on TV, right? Okay, so then we come down here. Let's go down here to where are the radios made? Are they made in the United States? They're the United States company. 100% American-owned business, right? Well, where are they sourcing their supplies from? We are an American company located in Michigan. Our parts are sourced from Asia, and all radios are programmed and shipped from Michigan. Yes, but the radios are actually purchased out of China. We know that. Okay, and of course, what's included? Okay, what's included? The radio, the battery, the charger dock, antenna, and belt clip. We also have optional solar charging and EMP protection on the next page after placing your order, as well as headsets. Okay. And of course, here's your form to check out. We're not going to do that. We're definitely not going to check out and place the order and go to place the order. But here's where it gets interesting. Okay. So down here at the bottom, they have the disclaimers here that this is a legal ham radio which operates on the amateur 2 meter and 70 centimeter frequencies, VHF and UHF. Listening in on frequencies does not require a license. Transmitting requires FCC amateur radio license unless due to certain exemptions outlined in the FCC amateur radio rules. For that reason, if you're unlicensed, this radio is for emergency use and listening purposes only. That's why those asterisks are up there at the top, by the way, in the fine print down here. This radio is specifically certified for amateur bands with FCC ID number, which, by the way, that'll come in handy to know that in a minute. It will not operate on GMRS bands, gmrs bands, or any other frequency that requires a special FCC certification. It is not being marketed as such and cannot operate on those frequencies. Receiving transmissions that are further than a few miles will require the use of a repeater or linked repeater. For global communication, Echo Link or something similar will be required. And it gives the company information. So we have the FCC number. Oh, the FCC ID number for their radio. We're going to take a look at that in a moment and try to find out. Let's try and first figure out what radio this is. Because, see, that's the thing. I usually recognize a radio, and this radio does look familiar. But what radio is it? So I went over here first, and other side of theirs. They have more than one site, by the way. Or they're all linked together, but same company, Rapid Radios, and then this one here. Okay, so this is the radio they say they're selling, and that's fine and well. And we're going to look at that radio in a minute or something real similar to that. However, let's take a look first at the FCC ID number that they provided. FCC ID number, which is here on the screen, and its equipment is a Brie Electronic Company. It's out of China. This is where they buy the radio. Now, this is a UV-S9, it says here. So let's take a look over here on a Breeze site for what the S9 looks like. This is what the S9 on a Breeze site looks like. Now, this one is a tri-band radio. The one they're advertising is a dual-band radio. So we know that there's some false advertising going on here. There's a problem somewhere in this mix. Because clearly they're not sending you an S9 because that's a tri-band radio. So we know that. We're going to just say they're not sending you that. So let's go back to the FCC number here, and let's go to external photos here. Let's take a little look here with the external photos and see what kind of radio this is that we see in their external photos. Now, this is what's submitted to the FCC for their certification of the item. And as you can see here, the radio that they have submitted and that the company is showing as the part number or the FCC ID number for the part is a UV5R. Yes, the classic UV5R. Now, are they sending you UV5R? Probably not. But let's just go with the UV5R for a moment, just for argument's sake on this. So, actually, let's put the UV5R back on the screen. There we go. Okay. So, the UV5R, for those that may or may not be aware of this, the UV5R is one of the cheapest radios out there. It's a great radio to get started with. Now, this company is going to sell you a radio for $70. However, the UV5R is a retail price on Amazon of approximately $18 as of yesterday. So, but they're not actually selling you the UV5R because we looked at the other photos here. So we're looking at these. What is this radio? Let me just punch up. I can't put it on my screen right now. No, without closing a screen and doing it. Okay, so this radio here, it's an interesting looking radio, but it and the design on it is simple. Now, a lot of times companies buy radios from China and they put their own stickers on them and change them up a little bit. But the closest I could find to this radio in itself is, where's my other window at? Would be over here. This is, the closest I can find to it would be the Redivus RT85, and they look almost identical when you put them side by side here. Let me see if I can, well, I will do that later. Okay, so they do look almost, I can't put them side by side on here, but the closest I can find was the Redivus RT85 ham radio. Now, it is a ham radio, and it does have it's a good. It looks to be a pretty good, simple radio. But here's the thing. Once again, this company is selling you one radio for $70, and you have to pay extra for the programming. You do have to pay extra for the accessories, of course. But the RT85, if you're interested, retails for $24.75 right now on Amazon. Oh, but wait, there's more. There's more. Because currently, as of the time of this live stream, the RT85 on Amazon.com is $23.75 for a 2-pack. Yes, that's a 2-pack. Not a 1-pack, a 2-pack. All right. So, keep it in mind there. Or you can go to My Emergency Radios and purchase a one radio for $70 and pay extra for the programming. Now, why is all this important? Because companies like this prey on people's fears. They do. They prey on your fear of what's going to happen, and they primarily target the elderly and the vulnerable, which I have a problem with. They do target these people. They target the elderly, they target the vulnerable, and they buy cheap radio from China, they rebrand it, and they say, oh yes, it's the greatest thing ever, buy this from us, buy that from us. Now, Rapid Radios, of course, which is apparent to this myemergencyradio.com, Rapid Radios, they put out these little radios that run on an LTE network. And I had an ad on YouTube pop up for that this morning, talking about, oh, the phones are down, but I can still use this. No, you can't. If the phones are down, you're not going to be using that little Rapid Radio because it runs on LTE, the cell phone networks. So don't give us that line either. But that's the thing. These companies false advertise, and we have to be willing to say something about it and call it out. Now, here's the thing, people. I realize that I know the importance of having a two-way radio. I always have my radio with me. I just do. And so, and I use a GMRS radio, but I do listen into other bands, other frequencies and stuff. But for what I do on a daily basis, GMRS, it works just fine. It's what we use around here. Okay. Now, that being said, I like having a radio, and I think everybody should have a radio. However, if you're going to get a radio, there are plenty of tutorials online that can help you with this, and that's programming the radio. You don't need to pay a company an extremely high amount of money for a radio that you yourself can purchase and program a lot cheaper. And then you got to pay extra for the programming. They say, by the way, people, programming software is free. Finding those radio frequencies takes a little work, but it's not very hard to do. You can find it. You can go to Radio Reference, Repeater Book. Even inside Chirp, there's frequencies saved in there that you can pull stock configuration frequencies. So you have plenty of options out there to finding radio frequencies for things in your area, be it emergency services, repeaters, whatever. But you can find everything on your own. It's not that hard to do, and it doesn't take that much time. And you will save a lot of money in the long run. Very few radios are actually manufactured in the United States. Most radios do come from China. And I know everybody right now is on this big buy American kick. Buy American. We need to only buy American stuff, but most of the things that you buy are not going to come from America. They say they're an American company, but they're importing. And that's what everybody does. But they import and then they still jack the price up even more than what other companies are just you're going to be able to buy it from for. Now, I buy radios from different places. I do. I buy it if it's on Amazon and it's got a good deal, I buy it. If I find something on another site, I may buy from there if it's a really good deal. And if it's a product I really want to look at. Now, that's the thing, you can shop around. But don't fall for gimmick ads that are going to just tell you, hey, buy this from us because, you need it in an emergency and we're going to program it for you. Well, it's fine if it's programmed for you. But you don't know how to use it because you didn't take the time to learn to use it, to learn to program it, to learn to operate it. So what people are gonna do is they buy these radios for expensive amounts of money. Instead of learning anything about it, it's programmed for whatever I need. Then they throw it in their Faraday bag, and into the closet it goes. Then if something does happen, they're gonna pull it out, and they're not gonna know what to do on it. Not to mention the battery's probably gonna be dead from being just stored away. So if you're going to get something, take the time to learn to use it. And don't fall for gimmicks that are online like that. Really, you shouldn't. I looked at that last night, that whole site, because it popped up and it was interesting. And I think that people need to be looking at these things. Because these companies are preying on vulnerable people. And people are afraid. People like to be afraid, but they scare easily. And we don't need to be scaring people. The job really should be to educate, to enlighten, and to inform instead of fear-mongering just to make a buck. Now, could things go south real fast? Absolutely. They could. Things can go south real fast. However, it doesn't mean that you need to be afraid. Do you need to be prepared? Yes. Should you give into fear-mongering ads? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What you should do is get a two-way radio. You can get the UV5R. Like I said, it's cheap. The RT85 is on sale right now. I got the 2-pack of 10 ways that we looked at on the unboxing last week, which we're going to do a review on very soon. I got the 2-pack of the 10 ways for $30 after tax. So you can easily get a radio that is a good deal and a good price. There's always good deals out there. Amazon has a lot of good deals. But you can buy a two-way radio, and you can go on to download the Chirp software so that you can learn to program it, and there's plenty of tutorials out there for it. I've done tutorials before on, I just don't have them on the channel right now. I'm probably going to have to do a new one. But I know we looked at the programming software for the GM30 Plus when we talked about it, because it's proprietary software. Now, that's another thing. Take, for instance, like the 10-way radios. They're not on Chirp, but They're on. They have their own software to program them with, and so you can just download that and go from there too. Um, a lot of radios are on Chirp, although, and if you're going with something like just a UV5R for emergencies, it's on Chirp, and you can look and see what's compatible and everything with the Chirp list. And that's all free to do. It's free software. That's what I'm telling you. It's free software, so uh, you can take the time to do it. And it's a good thing to learn because if you just buy them from a company that are pre-programmed, you throw them in a closet, an emergency happens, you're not going to know what to do. You're not going to know how to use them. So you've got to take the time. Now, of course, anybody with a license isn't going to fall for a scam site like that when they can just buy a radio from anywhere. Also, it's questionable with the site what they're really sending when they put the FCC ID number for the product, and it goes back to a UV5R basically. Um, so that whatever radio they're sending, uh, let me see if I can get that. I'm going to put that at. See if I can put that on the screen. But whatever radio they're sending, be it the UV5R or whatever they're sending, which I think is going to be closer to the RT85, you're still going to be paying more money. Uh, there we go. Okay. Okay, that's fine. All right, I'll put this up. Y'all can see this. So here we go. This is on Amazon here, but this is the RT 85 Redibus. Like I said, it looks like it's the same radio when you look at it compared to what's on their website. The same basic uh, functionality, same keys and everything on here. So it's just probably a rebranding of this radio here, which, as you can see, is $24 basically. $24 shipped to your door. So that's one of those things right there. Yeah, 20. I mean, you have 20. It's $24 shipped to your door. The point to that is that you could buy two radios and learn to program yourself for a lot less money than what you're going to be paying a company to send you one radio for. So don't fall for scams like that when you see them out there. Take a look at them and really review whether or not they're actually worth it. I know a lot of people don't really want to spend the time researching something because it takes time. And it's just easy when you see an ad to go, oh, that's an ad, it's a product. It's on this place, it's on X or it's on Facebook or it's on whatever. So it's an ad, it's on there, it must be true. Let's buy it. And that's how ads as seen on TV things always work. They put it on the TV, so I'll believe it, I'll buy it. So don't fall for the scam, don't fall for the gimmick. Instead, do your own research and learn to use something. I had to learn how to program a radio. I had to learn how to do all the stuff I do with radios. And there's often times when I learn something new. You know, trial and error. I had a problem with the radio a while back, and I was going through the menu trying to find a setting. And the reason I couldn't find it was because on that particular radio, you actually have to push the star key, I think it is, to get to a sub menu that I didn't even know was there. Now, could I have done the programming for that on the internet, on the computer? Yes. But I was looking for it manually because I was just not hooked up to, I didn't have it hooked to the computer anyway. So that's one of those things. Sometimes you have to get familiar with the technology that you have. And people often don't do that. People don't want to spend the time. They want something that's quick and easy to throw in a bag. And that's like buying the FRS radios. People do. They buy the Midland or the Cobra or whatever bubble pack radio they can get at Walmart, and they'll buy it because it says on the package, talks 35 miles, talks 40 miles, whatever. Now it's not going to reach that far. And FRS is definitely not going to reach that far. Um, FRS is good for short, close range communications because it's low power. Tell you what I use FRS for. It's real simple what I use FRS for. It's for when my kids are in their rooms. So I don't have to hear them yelling across the house. They each have an FRS radio plugged into a charger in their room. That way they can pick up the radio and say something on it, and I'll know what's going on. I'll know if they need something or if I need to go or what. It's a real simple task. And I can listen to those on any radio. Of course, I can listen to them on my GMRS radio, which I usually have tuned to one of those. I have at least one GMRS radio always tuned to the same frequency their FRS is on. That way, they can reach me if I step outside or something. You should be prepared. But buying the FRS walkie-talkie and throwing it in a bag and saying, okay, well, I've got it when I need it. Okay. But what are you going to do with it? You're not going to have that much range on it. So it's good to be prepared. It really is. And you should be prepared. But are you truly prepared if you just purchase something and throw it in a bag and not know how to use it? Preparation also must include knowing how to use the equipment, how to program it, how to operate it, and how to maintain it. There's simple things there. It's just the thing about it. Also, you can purchase a radio online, relatively cheap. You can get you a Faraday box or a bag or whatever. If you want to keep it in that, that's fine and well. And you can even get a solar charger. All of that is fairly cheap. You can get it all online, a lot cheaper than you're going to pay from some company that's just giving you an advertisement. But they make people feel good, I know, because they say, well, we're an American company. But I don't care if you're an American company or not. If you're trying to sell me something for $70 that I can buy for $20, I'm going to buy the $20 option. And that's the way it will always be. So, now if you're selling me something for $30 and I could buy it for 20, your local business I'm probably going to deal with it. If it's a local business, I definitely will deal with it. Deal with the extra price. But it's just people. The only way to get people to pay that price is because of fear, and fear sells. And we've got too many people out there in the world that are playing on our fears instead of providing credible information. It's one of those things. We need to always have credible information brought to us, presented to us, given to us as a fact. It's one of those things. But people also have to be willing to take the time to do the research. And I'll admit that watching a radio video, probably not the most entertaining thing you're going to do with your day. And I know people want to be entertained, amused, distracted. But watching something informative could be a difference in being able to do something and not being able to do something. So, my thoughts. One is that the emergency radio stuff, companies like that, they are a scam. They are targeting vulnerable people. Two, you can learn how to do anything you want. And there's plenty of tutorials and videos out there to teach you how to do stuff. And three, there are people around you that probably know how to do stuff, especially when it comes to radio and stuff, that you can ask for help. I'm sure there are plenty of people that you could reach out to for help. If you need advice on it or you have a question, you can put it in the comments on this video. And I'll come back, I'll look at it, and you know what? We'll do another live stream covering those things. I've got a lot, I want to do more radio streams. I intended to, and I'll mention this, I intended to do the 10-way review the other day, but I had some things come up, and I wasn't able to get to it. And then, I just haven't gotten to it. I'm hoping that tomorrow we can do the review on the 10-way radios that I have here, the GM55. Now, we'll mention that these radios, actually, if you look at them, they're very similar to what that company sells, by the way. They're very similar. They're not exactly the same, but they are very similar. Of course, these are GMRS radios, not FRS, or not ham radios, but they are GMRS radios. And I am pleasantly impressed with them, although I did find out a few things that really make it or different because I'm not used to. But I will say there's a lot of features on this I like. There's something that did throw me off for a moment, but it's nothing that can't be addressed and can't be fixed. But yeah, we've also got it's one of those things. Although, and be careful, and that's another thing is be wary of what you read on the internet, because, like I said, a lot of that stuff is out there just to scare you, and you don't need to be afraid. There's no reason why people need to be afraid all the time, just because a website tells them to be. Be prepared, yes. Be afraid, no. It's real simple. All right, people. Like I said, we're going to be back soon, probably tomorrow, with the, unless I have time this evening to get to it, the 10-way review. We're going to talk about that coming up. Also, I do want to talk about, and we're going to do this on a future stream, but I'll just mention it here, some things I want to talk about coming up. One of them is going to be antennas. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the antennas that I have laying around here. We'll ask this question real quick, if I can find my other one. By the way, if y'all knew how much stuff I have between me and where I need to reach, you'd be amazed. Okay. All right, but here we'll ask this question for a future stream. Y'all can let me know what y'all think is better. Let me know which one y'all think is going to turn out better. Whether you're going to put these side by side later on a stream. We've got in this hand, we've got the Tidway TD805S, little stubby antenna. And this one we have a cheap little stubby flexible rubber antenna from China. This was about $2. And this was a 2-pack for $10 on Amazon. So $2 versus $10 here. And the rubber one's a little bit taller. But we're going to talk about these two antennas and which one works better in a future stream as well. So which one works better? Y'all can let me know in the comments down below what you think the winner will be. All right. All right. Remember that when we are live, you can always use the chat box to ask questions while live. That way you can have your answer immediate and you don't have to wait for it to use the comment section. However, you can use the comment section to get your answer later. Okay. Like I said, we'll be back soon with another stream.